I'm Axel, 35, a software engineer who always supported my family financially. Everything changed last Tuesday when I received a group text from them saying, "We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore. At all." I sat there stunned until I realized what this was really about. My uncle was the only one who stood by me. When I finally responded to their message, I never expected what would happen by midnight. Before I tell you how my uncle helped me teach my family a lesson about appreciation, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to deal with ungrateful relatives. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Seattle, I never imagined I'd become the financial backbone of my entire family. My parents, Robert and Patricia, divorced when I was 14, leaving emotional scars that would take years to heal. My father moved across the country to Boston, while my mother struggled to maintain our lifestyle on a single income. That early experience shaped my determination to achieve financial stability. Through hard work and late nights studying, I earned a full scholarship to the University of Washington, majoring in computer science. During my junior year, I landed an internship at Tech Giant, one of the major players in the industry. My supervisor recognized my potential and offered me a full-time position upon graduation. Within 5 years, I climbed the corporate ladder to become a senior software engineer, and my salary reflected that success. As my income grew, so did the number of family members who seemed to need my help. My younger sister Brittany, now 32, became a single mother of 2 after her husband abandoned the family. She struggled to balance childcare with her part-time retail job. Initially, I offered to help with her rent for a few months, until she got back on her feet. Those few months turned into years. "Axel, I don't know what I'd do without you," Brittany would say while wiping away tears. "The kids and I would be homeless." Her gratitude seemed genuine at first, but over time her lifestyle choices made me question her priorities. She always managed to afford new clothes and weekly salon visits, yet consistently fell short on utilities and groceries. My older brother Marcus, 38, presented a different kind of challenge. Perpetually between jobs, he possessed expensive taste and a talent for finding new business ventures that required just a little investment to get started. From cryptocurrency trading to importing exotic cars, his schemes never materialized into actual income. Yet he drove a luxury car that I made payments on and lived in a downtown apartment that somehow I ended up co-signing for. "This deal is going to change everything." Little brother became his catchphrase, always followed by, "I just need a small loan to make it happen." The loans were never small and they were never repaid. My mother Patricia, 58, perhaps influenced me the most with her constant financial emergencies. After the divorce, she never quite recovered emotionally or financially. Every minor household repair became a crisis that required my immediate attention and wallet. She worked as an administrative assistant but spent beyond her means accumulating credit card debt that I eventually paid off multiple times. "You know I wouldn't ask if it wasn't absolutely necessary," she would insist during our weekly phone calls. I'm so embarrassed to need help from my own son. Yet the embarrassment never prevented the next request. Extended family members joined the roster of dependents. Cousins Emily and Jason discovered my generosity through family gatherings and began reaching out directly. Emily needed help with college tuition. Jason needed bail money after a DUI. Each request came with promises of repayment that never materialized. To simplify the constant requests, I established direct deposits. Every month, funds automatically transferred from my account to Brittany's for rent and childcare, to my mother's for living expenses, and to the loan company for Marcus's car. This system worked efficiently, perhaps too efficiently, as it removed the need for them to even ask anymore. The money just appeared, and gratitude diminished proportionally. In the beginning, being able to help my family gave me immense satisfaction. I remembered the financial struggles after my parents' divorce and wanted to spare them similar hardships. Each thank you note, each tearful phone call of gratitude reinforced my belief that I was doing the right thing. My success felt meaningful because I could share it. However, subtle signs of entitlement began to emerge. Thank you notes became rare. Phone calls shifted from gratitude to expectations. Family gatherings turned into opportunities to discuss new financial needs rather than to simply enjoy each other's company. The dynamic changed so gradually that I barely noticed it happening. Throughout all this, only one family member never asked me for money: my Uncle Liam, my father's brother. At 62, he had built his own successful construction business, from nothing, understanding the value of hard work and self-reliance. While we weren't particularly close during my childhood, our relationship strengthened after I began my career. "You can't buy love with money, Axel," he told me, during a rare private conversation at a family barbecue. "And what you give without expectations can become what they take without appreciation." I dismissed his warning at the time, confident in the strength of our family bonds. I believed my relatives appreciated my help and would do the same for me if our situations were reversed. Uncle Liam just nodded and said, "I hope you're right, son." I truly do. The software engineering job that funded everyone's needs demanded long hours and constant skill development. While my family members enjoyed weekends and holidays, I often worked through them to meet deadlines or learn new programming languages to stay competitive. The irony wasn't lost on me that the very people benefiting from my career often complained about how little time I spent with them. Still, I convinced myself that this was what family did for each other. We support one another through tough times. I just didn't realize that I was preventing them from ever facing those tough times, and consequently from developing the strength to overcome them on their own. The first major crack in my perception of our family dynamic appeared during Brittany's supposed rent emergency. After receiving a frantic call about an eviction notice, I immediately transferred $3,000 to her account. The next day, she posted photos on social media of her brand new living room furniture. When I gently questioned the timing, her response chilled me. "Are you monitoring how I spend my money now?" she snapped. "I thought you gave it to me because I needed help, not so you could control me." "It's not about control," I explained carefully. "It's about priorities. If there was an eviction notice—" "Just because you have money doesn't make you better than the rest of us," she interrupted. "Some of us want to live in homes that don't look like dorm rooms." The conversation ended with her hanging up. She didn't speak to me for 2 weeks until she needed money for her son's school field trip. My mother's tactics were more subtle but equally effective. During Sunday dinners at her house, she would make comments about successful children who remember where they came from and the obligation to care for family who sacrificed everything. These statements weren't directed at me explicitly, but the message was clear. When I tried to discuss financial planning with her, suggesting she might benefit from a budget, her response was swift and cutting. "I raised you on my own after your father left, working 2 jobs sometimes. I didn't have time for budgets then, and I don't have the energy for them now. Is it too much to expect a little help from my son who makes more in a month than I do in a year?" The guilt was effective, silencing any further discussion about financial responsibility. Marcus demonstrated his priorities most clearly when he skipped my important work celebration, but called the same day for money. After 5 years at Tech Giant, I received a prestigious innovation award that included a significant bonus. The company hosted a formal dinner where I would give a speech. I invited my entire family months in advance. The day of the ceremony, Marcus texted, "Can't make it tonight. Something came up with a potential investor. Need $2,000 for a business dinner to seal the deal. We'll pay back double next week." I sat at a half-empty family table during one of the proudest moments of my career. After receiving my award, I checked my phone to find 3 more messages from Marcus asking if I'd sent the money yet. There was no mention of the award or any congratulations. I transferred the funds during the dessert course, feeling a hollowness that the recognition from colleagues couldn't fill. Marcus never mentioned repayment again, and when I brought it up weeks later, he acted surprised that I would nickel and dime my own brother. These incidents accumulated like small weights on my shoulders. My cousin Jason borrowed my vacation cabin without permission and left it trashed. My mother told relatives I was paying for a family reunion before consulting me. Brittany enrolled her children in expensive private lessons, then called me crying when she couldn't cover the costs. Each time I expressed concern about these behaviors, I became the villain in their narrative. I was stingy, controlling, or forgetting where I came from. The only person who seemed to understand was Uncle Liam, who had watched the situation develop with growing concern. Thanksgiving dinner became the setting for our first major confrontation. Marcus arrived driving a newer, more expensive car than the one I was making payments on. When I questioned him about it, he shrugged. It's a lease. No big deal. But I'm still paying for the other car I pointed out. Which I'm selling next week, he assured me. The market's good right now. During dinner, the conversation turned to Marcus's job search, which had supposedly been ongoing for 6 months. When I suggested he might need to lower his expectations and take something to pay the bills while looking for his ideal position, the table went silent. Not everyone gets lucky with a cushy tech job, he replied coldly. Some of us have to wait for the right opportunity. It's not about luck, I countered. It's about showing up and doing the work even when it's not perfect. My mother intervened then. After all we've done for you, Axel, I didn't raise you to be judgmental. The phrase stunned me into silence. After all they had done for me, I looked around the table at the family I had been supporting for years and realized they had somehow reversed our roles in their minds. Somehow, I had become indebted to them, not the other way around. After dinner, Uncle Liam pulled me aside to the garage while I was grabbing more drinks from the cooler. You see it now, don't you? He asked quietly. See what? The trap you've built for yourself. He leaned against my car. They don't see your money as help anymore. They see it as an obligation, as something they're entitled to. They're family, I protested weakly. Yes, they are. And families should lift each other up, not drain each other dry. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Your money isn't helping them become better people, Axel. It's helping them stay exactly where they are. His words stayed with me long after the holiday ended. I began to notice more clearly how one-sided our relationships had become. Phone calls that only came when bank accounts ran low. Invitations to events that always seemed to include some unexpected expense. The lack of interest in my life, my achievements, or my struggles. After careful consideration, I decided to slightly reduce my financial support, not out of spite, but out of genuine concern for their independence. I decreased the direct deposit amounts by 20% and informed each family member individually, explaining that I was reallocating some funds toward retirement planning, but would continue to help with essentials. The reactions ranged from cold acceptance to outright accusations of abandonment. None acknowledged that I had been supporting them for years or that I was still providing substantial assistance. Instead, they focused entirely on what was being taken away. That was the moment I should have recognized the true nature of our relationships, but family ties are powerful. I convinced myself that they just needed time to adjust, that their reactions came from fear rather than entitlement. I wanted to believe we could find a healthier balance. I was wrong. Spring arrived with warming temperatures and increasingly chilly family interactions. The 20% reduction in financial support had created an undercurrent of resentment that surfaced in passive-aggressive comments and subtle digs at family gatherings. Despite this tension, the requests continued growing more extravagant rather than more modest. Brittany called one April morning while I was preparing for an important client meeting. I've been thinking about taking the kids to Disney World this summer, she announced without preamble. They've been through so much with the divorce, and I want to give them some happy memories. That sounds nice, I replied cautiously. Have you been saving up for it? Her laugh had a brittle edge. On my salary, very funny. I was hoping you could help make this happen for them. They're your niece and nephew, after all. Brittany, I'm already covering your rent, which is 3 weeks overdue according to your landlord who called me directly yesterday. Silence fell between us. Then, so you'll pay for a roof over our heads, but not for any actual joy in our lives. That's pretty controlling, Axel. The conversation deteriorated from there, ending with her accusation that I cared more about money than family. After she hung up, I sat at my kitchen counter, coffee growing cold, and wondered when helping had transformed into an obligation to fulfill every wish. Marcus created his own crisis 2 weeks later when he borrowed my car without permission. I had given him a spare key for emergencies years ago, a decision I immediately regretted when I walked to my empty parking space that Saturday morning. My calls went unanswered until late that night when he finally responded. Relax, I needed it for an important meeting. My lease car is in the shop. You can't just take someone's car without asking Marcus. You weren't using it, he countered. Besides, we're brothers. What's yours is mine, right? When he returned it the next day, the front bumper was damaged and the gas tank empty. He handed me the keys with a shrug. Some idiot backed into me in a parking lot. I got their information, though. He hadn't. There was no information, no insurance claim, just an expectation that I would handle it. The repair cost $700 and added to my growing frustration. Yet each time I considered cutting financial ties, completely guilt prevented me. These were people I'd known and loved my entire life. Could I really turn my back on them when they needed help? My mother escalated matters by involving extended family. After I questioned a particularly large withdrawal she'd made from the account I maintained for her, she called my aunts and uncles to complain about my controlling behavior. Family members I rarely spoke with began sending messages expressing disappointment in how I was treating my mother. "Your father left her with nothing," my Aunt Sophia reprimanded in a lengthy email. "The least you can do is make her golden years comfortable." None of these relatives offered financial assistance themselves, of course. Their contribution was limited to judging my perceived inadequate generosity from a safe distance. The situation reached a breaking point during a family gathering to discuss my cousin Anthony's upcoming wedding in Hawaii. The event was planned at an exclusive resort with a minimum 5-night stay requirement. As everyone settled in my mother's living room with drinks and snacks, I had brought the conversation quickly turned to logistics. "So Axel," Anthony's mother began, "we were thinking you could book a block of rooms for the immediate family. Maybe 10 rooms for the week. The resort offers a slight discount for bulk reservations." I nearly choked on my drink. 10 rooms at a luxury resort for a week, that would cost a fortune. "Well, you're the one with the fortune," Marcus quipped, earning chuckles from around the room. "I'm happy to pay for my own room," I clarified, "but I can't cover everyone's stay. That would be thousands of dollars." An uncomfortable silence fell over the gathering. My mother cleared her throat. "We just assumed, since you're always so generous, and this is a special family occasion. I think everyone who wants to attend should contribute what they can." I suggested reasonably. We could look for package deals or more affordable accommodations nearby. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Brittany muttered something about typical behavior. Marcus rolled his eyes dramatically. My mother looked at me as though I had suggested canceling Christmas. "Some of us don't have the luxury of tech salaries," Anthony's father said pointedly. "We might not be able to attend if we have to pay our own way." The implication was clear: if I didn't pay, I was preventing family members from attending an important event. Their financial limitations were somehow my responsibility. I stood firm, offering to help research affordable options but refusing to foot the entire bill. For the remainder of the gathering, I was treated with cold politeness, excluded from conversations, and left sitting alone while others chatted in smaller groups. As people began leaving, Uncle Liam approached me on the porch. "Got a minute to talk?" We walked to the end of the driveway, away from curious ears. "You're seeing it clearly now," he said. It wasn't a question. They expected me to spend over $20,000 without even discussing it first, I replied, still stunned by the assumption. Uncle Liam nodded. "I went through something similar years ago with my brother-in-law's family. Started with small loans, escalated to vacations and second mortgages." He looked at me directly. "Want to know how it ended?" "How?" "With me bankrupt, and them finding another relative to leech from." He placed a hand on my shoulder. "The moment I couldn't provide anymore, I discovered what I meant to them, and it had nothing to do with who I was as a person." His words resonated with my growing suspicions. Over the following weeks, the backlash from the Hawaii discussion manifested in missed family dinners where I was accidentally not informed of time changes, social media posts about selfish people who hoard their blessings, and direct messages from relatives expressing disappointment in my changed attitude. The resentment I felt began to overshadow the guilt. I'd worked incredibly hard for my success, often at the expense of my own well-being. 60-hour work weeks, sacrificed vacations, constant skill development. None of this factored into my family's perception of my easy tech job. To them, money simply appeared in my bank account, and my reluctance to share it infinitely was a character flaw rather than a boundary. In a final attempt to establish healthy financial relationships, I invited my immediate family to dinner at a nice restaurant. I chose a private room where we could speak openly without disturbing other diners. After appetizers arrived, I broached the subject carefully. "I want to talk about our financial arrangements," I began. "I'm happy to help during true emergencies, but I think we need clearer boundaries about what constitutes necessity versus preference. Marcus scoffed before I could continue. Here we go, the money lecture. It's not a lecture, I insisted. It's a conversation I'm trying to have. A conversation where you dictate terms, Brittany countered. Because you have all the power. My mother sighed dramatically. I raised you to be generous, Axel. Your father was tight with money too, and look how that turned out. Each attempt to redirect the conversation constructively was met with accusations, comparisons, or outright dismissal. They weren't interested in finding a sustainable arrangement. They wanted the status quo where their financial needs were met without question or limitation. I left the restaurant feeling defeated, questioning whether any relationship could survive such fundamental disconnection. On the drive home, I called Uncle Liam, the only family member who seemed to understand my position. They don't want to hear it, I told him, hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. They act like I'm being cruel for wanting some accountability. Because accountability threatens the arrangement, he replied simply. You're asking them to acknowledge that they're dependent on you, and that's uncomfortable for their pride. What would you do? I asked, genuinely seeking guidance. He was quiet for a moment. I'd consider what these relationships are costing you beyond just dollars, and whether what you're receiving in return is worth that price. That night I couldn't sleep. I reviewed years of one-sided giving, of missed appreciation of relationships that seemed to exist only when financial needs arose. The weight of it all felt suddenly unbearable. Something needed to change, but I never imagined how dramatically that change would arrive. Tuesday morning dawned bright and clear, a beautiful May day that gave no indication of the storm about to break in my life. I had an early meeting with my development team, followed by a lunch presentation for potential clients. The day was packed with responsibilities and deadlines, my mind focused entirely on work as I showered and dressed. At 7:32, my phone chimed with a group text notification. Seeing my family members' names in the group, I assumed it was about an upcoming birthday or holiday planning. What I read instead stopped me cold in my kitchen coffee mug suspended halfway to my lips. We've discussed this as a family and feel we need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore, at all. The message came from my mother's phone but indicated it represented a collective decision. My hands began to shake, coffee sloshing over the rim of my mug onto the counter. I read and reread the words, trying to process their meaning, searching for context that wasn't there. I set down the mug and typed a response. What? What's going on? Did something happen? 3 dots appeared, indicating someone was typing, then disappeared. Minutes passed with no reply. I tried calling my mother, then Brittany, then Marcus. Each call went straight to voicemail. The silence was more disorienting than an argument would have been. As I stood frozen in confusion, individual texts began arriving from separate family members, each elaborating on the group message in their own way. From Brittany, you've become so controlling with your money. We're tired of the strings attached to every bit of help. It's toxic. From Marcus, maybe when you learn that family isn't about keeping score, we can talk again. From my mother, I've never been so disappointed in how you've turned out. Your father would be ashamed. Each message landed like a physical blow. Controlling, keeping score. My father would be ashamed. The accusations bore so little resemblance to reality that I wondered if this was some elaborate prank, or if I'd somehow entered an alternate universe where our shared history had been completely rewritten. I tried calling each of them again with the same result, straight to voicemail. The orchestrated nature of their response, all phones turned off simultaneously after delivering their messages, suggested planning and coordination. This wasn't an impulsive action, but a deliberate strategy. Unable to concentrate on anything else, I called my team lead and requested a personal day, something I rarely did. Then, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by the comfortable home I'd worked so hard to obtain, feeling more alone than I ever had. The hours crawled by as I alternated between anger, confusion, and hurt. I reviewed recent interactions, searching for some catastrophic misstep on my part that could explain this level of rejection. Had I said something unforgivable? Had I unknowingly crossed some line? The only consistent issue had been my attempts to establish reasonable financial boundaries. As evening approached, my phone rang, startling me from the daze I'd fallen into. Uncle Liam's name appeared on the screen and I answered immediately. "Hey Axel, just checking in. Haven't heard from you in a few days." The concern in his voice broke something in me. I found myself explaining the morning's events, my voice unsteady as I recounted the text messages and silent phones. "I'm coming over," he said simply. "Give me 30 minutes." True to his word, Uncle Liam arrived carrying a 6-pack of craft beer and a determined expression. He listened without interruption as I showed him the messages and described my confusion. "I suspected something like this might happen," he said finally, but not quite so dramatically. "You knew they'd cut me off?" I asked, bewildered. "Not specifically, but I overheard something at your cousin Rebecca's baby shower last weekend. I was in the hallway when I heard your name mentioned in the kitchen." He took a sip of his beer. "Your mother was telling Brittany and some others that you needed to be taught a lesson about withholding support." The revelation hit me like ice water. They planned this. As a lesson. Uncle Liam nodded grimly. "From what I gathered, they expected you'd panic at being cut off and come begging for reconciliation. Your mother specifically said something about you remembering what family really means when you have no one to call. The calculated cruelty of it staggered me. These people who claimed I was controlling had orchestrated an elaborate emotional manipulation to force me back into financial submission. The irony would have been laughable if it weren't so painful. They've been bad-mouthing you at family events for months," Uncle Liam continued, "creating a narrative about your greed and controlling behavior to anyone who'll listen. Most people see through it, but some have bought into it. As this information sank and something shifted inside me, the hurt began to crystallize into clarity. What I had mistaken for family bonds had been financial dependence disguised as love. The people who should have cared most about my well-being were willing to inflict emotional pain to maintain their access to my resources." "What should I do?" I asked, not really expecting an answer. Uncle Liam considered for a moment. "What do you want to do?" The question was simple but profound. For years my actions had been guided by obligation, guilt, and the desire to be the good son, the supportive brother, the generous relative. I had never really considered what I wanted from these relationships. "I want to be valued for who I am, not what I can provide," I said slowly, the truth of it becoming clearer as I spoke. "I want relationships based on mutual respect and actual love, not financial transactions dressed up as family obligation." Uncle Liam nodded. "Then, I think you have your answer." We talked late into the night, Uncle Liam sharing similar experiences from his past, helping me see the situation with greater clarity. By the time he left, I had formulated a response that was both simple and powerful in its implications. The next morning, I sent a single text to the family group. "Of course, I'll cancel my direct deposits first thing." 8 words that acknowledged their request for space, while also making clear the financial consequences of that request. No arguments, no emotional appeals, just a straightforward acceptance of the new terms they had established. The response was immediate and revealing. Within minutes of sending my brief response, my phone exploded with notifications. The same family members who had demanded space and refused to answer my calls were suddenly very eager to communicate. The dramatic shift would have been comical if it weren't so painfully transparent. From my mother: "That's not what we meant, Axel. We need space emotionally, but that doesn't mean you abandon your financial responsibilities." From Brittany: "You know I depend on that money for the kids. You wouldn't punish innocent children, would you?" From Marcus, real mature: "Using money as a weapon proves exactly what we've been saying about you." The contradictions were stunning. According to their original message, they wanted no contact at all, yet now they were arguing that this directive somehow excluded financial support. They had demanded complete space from me as a person, but expected my money to keep flowing freely. Uncle Liam called as the messages continued to accumulate. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "Better than I expected," I replied truthfully. The clarity that had begun to form the previous night had solidified into resolve. They showed their true priorities pretty quickly. They certainly did. The approval in his voice strengthened my determination. "What's your next move?" "I'm going to the bank in person today to cancel all the automatic transfers and payments," I said. "Then I'm going to respect their wish for space completely." "Good for you." He paused. "Listen, I know this is a tough time. I was thinking I might come by after work, maybe bring some dinner. Unless you'd rather be alone." His offer touched me deeply. "I'd appreciate the company, actually." After ending the call, I responded individually to each family member's message with variations of the same theme. "I'm respecting your request for space completely. That includes financial entanglements. I wish you well." Their responses grew increasingly frantic and contradictory. My mother claimed she'd never agreed to the group message despite it coming from her phone. Brittany invoked her children's well-being, suggesting I was punishing them for adult conflicts. Marcus alternated between anger and attempts at brotherly camaraderie, as if our previous conversation had never happened. I silenced my phone and drove to my bank. The personal banker listened sympathetically, as I explained my need to cancel several automatic transfers and autopayments. "All of them?" she asked, reviewing the list on her screen. "All of them," I confirmed. As she processed the changes, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. For years, substantial portions of my income had been automatically directed to supporting family members who it now seemed clear valued the support more than the relationship. Taking back control of my finances was the first step toward establishing healthier boundaries. "These changes will take effect immediately," the banker informed me. "The scheduled transfers for next week won't process." I thanked her and left feeling both lighter and somehow stronger. On the drive home, I allowed myself to calculate roughly how much money I had been giving away monthly, nearly 40% of my take-home pay. The figure was staggering when viewed as a lump sum rather than individual transfers. My phone continued to buzz with messages and calls throughout the day, but I maintained my silence. Each communication grew more desperate or manipulative threats, guilt trips, attempts to involve other family members as intermediaries. I archived them all without response. Uncle Liam arrived at 6 carrying bags of takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant, and unexpectedly a small duffel bag. "What's with the bag?" I asked as he set down the food on my kitchen counter. "I thought you might need some company for a few days," he explained. "This family drama might escalate before it settles down, and having someone in your corner could help." He shrugged. "But only if you want the company. No pressure." The gesture nearly brought tears to my eyes. Throughout this ordeal, Uncle Liam had been the only person to consider my well-being rather than what I could provide. I'd appreciate that, actually. As we ate dinner, my phone rang with a call from Brittany's landlord, a man I'd spoken with multiple times when rent payments were late. "Mr. Walker, this is Gerald from Pinewood Apartments. There seems to be a problem with your sister's rent payment. The automatic transfer didn't come through." "I'm no longer handling those payments," I explained. "You'll need to speak directly with Brittany about any rental issues going forward." A pause. "I see. Well, this is awkward. She's already 3 weeks behind from last month, and I was counting on your payment to bring the account current before proceeding with." He trailed off, clearly uncomfortable. "With eviction proceedings," I supplied. "Unfortunately, yes." I thanked him for the information and ended the call feeling a complex mix of guilt and vindication. Brittany had been behind on rent despite my regular contributions, suggesting my money wasn't being used as intended. Similar calls followed throughout the evening. Marcus's auto lender regarding the missed car payment. My mother's utility company about an overdue balance that predated my withdrawal of support. Each call confirmed what I had suspected: my financial assistance had been maintaining a precarious house of cards rather than helping my family achieve stability. Uncle Liam listened to each call occasionally, offering perspective or support but never judgment. After the calls subsided, he shared information that further clarified the situation. "Your cousin Samuel called me this afternoon," he said. "Apparently there was a family meeting at your mother's house yesterday." "What kind of meeting?" "The kind where they planned how to handle you going forward." He shook his head. "Samuel felt uncomfortable with the whole thing and thought you should know. They decided that cutting you off emotionally would frighten you into increasing your financial support. Your mother specifically said, He's always been afraid of being alone. He'll pay anything to keep us in his life." The calculated manipulation stunned me. They really think they know me that well. "They know the version of you they created," Uncle Liam replied. "The dutiful son and brother, who can be controlled through guilt and obligation. They don't see the strong, independent man you've become." Despite the pain of betrayal, I slept better that night than I had in months. The clarity of knowing where I stood, however painful, was preferable to the confusion of mixed messages and manipulative tactics. The next morning brought a new wave of communications, these more directly focused on money. Brittany sent photos of her empty refrigerator with the caption, "Hope you're proud of starving your niece and nephew." Marcus forwarded an overdraft notice from his bank, with no message attached. My mother left a voicemail describing how she might lose her house without my help, despite the fact that her mortgage had been paid off years earlier with my assistance. Each attempt at manipulation strengthened my resolve rather than weakening it. I maintained my silence, focusing instead on work projects I had neglected during the emotional turmoil of recent days. Uncle Liam and I fell into a comfortable routine over the next few days. He left early for his construction business and returned in the evening with groceries or takeout. We watched sports or movies, occasionally discussing the family situation, but more often enjoying simple companionship without drama or hidden agendas. 5 days after the initial text message, my mother escalated matters by sending relatives to my home. My Aunt Sophia and Uncle Gerald arrived unannounced on Saturday morning, expressions solemn as if attending a funeral. "Your mother is devastated," Aunt Sophia began without preamble when I answered the door. "We're here to help you understand the damage you're causing." I invited them in where Uncle Liam was making breakfast. Their surprise at finding him there was evident. "Liam, what are you doing here?" Uncle Gerald asked. "Supporting my nephew," he replied, simply, spatula in hand. "Coffee." The intervention they had planned clearly hadn't accounted for Uncle Liam's presence. Their rehearsed speech about family obligation faltered in the face of his calm support. After an awkward conversation where I maintained my position respectfully but firmly, they left with promises to pray for my return to reason. Later that day, Samuel sent a text warning me that the family had scheduled a larger intervention for that evening. "They're planning to show up at your place around midnight," he wrote. "Thought you should know." Uncle Liam and I discussed whether to be present for this confrontation or to avoid it entirely. After consideration, I decided to face them directly. Running away won't resolve anything, I reasoned. Better to state my position clearly once and for all. And so we waited the hours ticking by until midnight approached. Uncle Liam made coffee as I mentally prepared for what was coming. At 11:58, headlights swept across my living room as several cars pulled into my driveway. The doorbell rang and I took a deep breath before opening the door to face my family. I opened my front door to find a delegation of family members standing on my porch, expressions ranging from righteous anger to performative concern. My mother stood at the center, flanked by Brittany and Marcus. Behind them, several aunts, uncles, and cousins formed an audience for the confrontation they had planned. "May we come in?" my mother asked with forced politeness. Without waiting for an answer, she stepped forward, the others following in her wake. They filed into my living room, some taking seats, while others remained standing, creating a semicircle that felt more like an interrogation than a family visit. The orchestrated nature of their arrival and positioning confirmed that this was indeed the intervention Samuel had warned about. "We're here because we're concerned about you, Axel." My mother began using the gentle tone she reserved for manipulation. "Your behavior lately has been troubling." "My behavior," I repeated, genuinely curious about how they would frame the situation. "Cutting off your family financially without warning," Brittany interjected. "My children haven't had a proper meal in days." I noticed her freshly done nails and new highlights as she gestured dramatically. The contradiction between her words and appearance wasn't lost on me. "And my car was repossessed yesterday," Marcus added. "I had to Uber here." Uncle Liam emerged from the kitchen with a tray of coffee mugs, his presence causing visible discomfort among the group. He set down the tray and stood beside me, a silent statement of support. "What are you doing here, Liam?" my mother asked sharply. "Being family," he replied simply, "the kind that shows up without a financial agenda." Her lips thinned with displeasure before she turned back to me. Axel, we understand you were hurt by our message. Perhaps we could have phrased things more carefully. But cutting us off financially was an extreme overreaction. Was it? I asked. Your exact words were, please don't reach out anymore. At all. I'm respecting your request. You know that's not what we meant, she snapped, mask of concern slipping momentarily. Actually, I don't know that, I replied calmly. What I do know is that within minutes of my agreeing to stop financial support, everyone suddenly wanted to communicate again. That seems significant. My Aunt Diana leaned forward. Axel, family helps family. It's what we do. I agree completely, I said. Family should help each other, but help should flow in multiple directions tailored to each person's abilities and needs. For years, I've provided financial support while receiving very little emotional support in return. When's the last time any of you asked about my life, my work, my dreams? The uncomfortable silence that followed was answer enough. Marcus scoffed. So this is about attention. Poor rich Axel doesn't feel appreciated enough. Uncle Liam stepped forward. Let me share something with all of you. His quiet authority commanded attention. 2 weeks ago, at Rebecca's baby shower, I overheard a conversation in the kitchen. Patricia, you were telling Brittany and others that Axel needed to be taught a lesson about withholding support. You specifically planned to cut him off emotionally to scare him into increasing financial support. My mother's face paled. You misunderstood. I don't think I did, Uncle Liam continued. You said, and I quote, he's always been afraid of being alone. He'll pay anything to keep us in his life. Those were your exact words. Brittany shifted uncomfortably. Marcus suddenly found the floor fascinating. My mother's expression hardened into defensiveness. Even if that conversation happened, she said carefully, it was out of concern for the family's well-being. Axel has been blessed with resources the rest of us don't have. Resources I earned through hard work, I interjected. 60-hour work weeks, sacrificed vacations, constant education to stay competitive, none of which any of you have acknowledged or supported. Uncle Liam nodded. I've watched this situation develop for years. Axel has given generously only to have his generosity taken for granted and then expected. When he finally established reasonable boundaries, you orchestrated an emotional manipulation to regain control. My cousin Anthony, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. Is that true? Aunt Patricia, was the group text a manipulation tactic? My mother's hesitation was damning. Before she could formulate a response, Brittany intervened with tears that appeared on cue. My children are suffering because of this. Whatever happened between adults shouldn't affect innocent children. Your children have a mother with a job, I pointed out, and a father who should be paying child support. Yet somehow their well-being has become exclusively my responsibility. You have more than enough money, she shot back. This isn't about the amount of money I have, I said firmly. It's about the nature of our relationship. For years I've been treated like an ATM rather than a brother, son, or uncle. The only time I hear from any of you is when you need something. Marcus stood up angrily. That's not fair, we're family. When's my birthday, Marcus? I asked quietly. He blinked, caught off guard. What? My birthday? When is it? He hesitated, looking to others for help. It's in October. August 23rd, I corrected. I never miss your birthday. I always call, always send a gift. You've missed my last 3 birthdays except to call the day after asking for money. The example landed with visible impact. Several family members looked uncomfortable, perhaps recognizing similar patterns in their own interactions with me. Let me be clear about something I continued addressing the entire group. I've never minded helping family during genuine hardships. What I object to is being valued only for my wallet while being emotionally discarded. The group text proved what I've suspected for some time, that my worth to this family is measured exclusively in dollars. That's not true, my mother protested weakly. Isn't it? You literally cut me off emotionally to extort more financial support. How else should I interpret that? The room fell silent as the truth of the situation settled over everyone. Some looked ashamed. others defiant, but none could deny the fundamental reality I had named. I took a deep breath. I'm setting a new boundary today. I'm open to rebuilding relationships with anyone interested in actual family bonds based on mutual respect and care. But those relationships will no longer include automatic financial support or unconditional bailouts. So, you're cutting us off permanently? Brittany asked, tears still streaming. I'm offering something more valuable than money, I replied. The opportunity for real relationships rather than transactional exchanges. Whether you value that offer is up to you. My mother stood abruptly. I can see this discussion is pointless. You've clearly made up your mind to abandon your family responsibilities. No, Mom. I'm reclaiming my dignity and offering us all a chance at healthier relationships. There's a difference. She gathered her purse with shaking hands. Come on, everyone. We're not welcome here. Several relatives rose to follow her, but others hesitated, looking between my mother and me with uncertainty. The family unity she had counted on was fracturing under the weight of exposed truths. My cousin Samuel approached me, as others filed out. For what it's worth, I think you're right. This has gotten unhealthy for everyone. He handed me a slip of paper, my new number. When things calm down, maybe we can grab lunch sometime. Just to talk, no agenda. As the last car pulled away, Uncle Liam placed a hand on my shoulder. You did well. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, I admitted, but it was necessary. We were about to head back inside when my phone chimed with a text notification. It was from my niece Brittany's 16-year-old daughter, Lily. Uncle Axel, I'm sorry about what happened tonight. Mom wouldn't let me come, but I wanted you to know I understand why you're upset. They don't talk about you the same way when they need money versus when they don't. It's not right. I miss you. Her message brought the first tears of the night to my eyes. In the midst of all the manipulation and entitlement, this teenager had seen the situation with remarkable clarity. I typed a careful response, thanking her for her understanding, and assuring her that regardless of adult conflicts, I would always be her uncle and would always care about her. As Uncle Liam and I settled back in the living room, emotionally drained, but somehow lighter, he raised his coffee mug in a small toast. To boundaries, he said simply. I clinked my mug against his. To real family. The road ahead would be challenging, but for the first time in years it felt like I was moving in the right direction. 1 month passed since the midnight confrontation, a period of adjustment and reflection that tested my resolve but ultimately reinforced my decision. The initial aftermath was predictably difficult, with continued attempts at manipulation ranging from angry accusations to tearful pleas. I maintained my position calmly but firmly, responding to emotional appeals with consistent boundaries. Uncle Liam stayed with me for that first week, his presence providing both practical support and emotional grounding. Our conversations often stretched late into the night, exploring the complex interplay of love, obligation, and self-respect that defines family relationships. The hardest part of setting boundaries, he told me one evening, is managing your own guilt. They know exactly which buttons to push because they installed them. He was right. Despite intellectual certainty about my decision, I struggled with waves of guilt and doubt. Had I been too harsh? Was I being selfish? What if they truly couldn't manage without my support? These questions haunted my quieter moments. You're not responsible for problems they could solve themselves, Uncle Liam reminded me. Your help became a crutch that prevented them from developing their own strength. Gradually, through these conversations and my own reflection, I began to distinguish between genuine compassion and unhealthy enabling. True compassion meant supporting growth and independence, not fostering perpetual dependency. 2 weeks after our confrontation, the first surprising development occurred. My sister Brittany secured a full-time position at the department store where she had been working part-time. The manager later mentioned to a mutual acquaintance that Brittany had approached him about additional hours and responsibilities, showing initiative she had previously lacked. Around the same time, Marcus maintained employment at a local marketing firm for a full month, without quitting or being terminated, a personal record for my perpetually job-hopping brother. He even posted on social media about completing a professional certification course, though he carefully avoided mentioning me or our situation. My mother made less visible but equally significant adjustments. A friend reported seeing her comparison shopping at the grocery store, carefully checking prices and using coupons. She canceled her premium cable package and weekly salon appointments, downsizing to a more sustainable lifestyle. These changes suggested that my family members possessed more capability and resilience than they had demonstrated while relying on my support. The knowledge was both vindicating and somewhat bittersweet. I had inadvertently been holding them back from developing these strengths by making survival too easy. The first direct communication came 3 weeks after the confrontation. My phone displayed my sister's name, a sight that still triggered an instinctive tension. I answered with cautious neutrality. Axel Brittany's voice sounded different, less entitled and more tentative. "Do you have a minute to talk?" "I do," I replied, keeping my tone even. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," she began, "about everything that happened, about how I've been treating you." She paused. "I'm not calling to ask for money. I want you to know that first." I appreciate that, I said, meaning it. "The thing is, losing your support was terrifying at first. I was so angry and scared, but then I had to figure things out, you know. And I did. I got more hours at work. I created a budget for the first time in my adult life. I even applied for child support enforcement to make my ex contribute." Her voice strengthened with pride. "It's still hard, but it's my hard. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," I assured her. "I miss you," she admitted. "Not your money. You. The kids miss their uncle. I know I messed up, participated in something really manipulative. I'm sorry, Axel. Truly sorry." Her apology felt genuine, lacking the calculated quality of previous emotional displays. We talked for nearly an hour, establishing careful new parameters for our relationship. I made no promises of financial support, but agreed to Sunday dinner the following weekend, just the 4 of us. That dinner was awkward but healing. My niece Lily hugged me tightly upon arrival, whispering, "I knew you'd come back." Her younger brother Devon showed me his science project with enthusiasm that had nothing to do with money or adult conflicts. Brittany maintained her apologetic stance, but didn't pressure me for commitments. As I was leaving, she handed me a small envelope. Inside was a check for $200. "It's a start," she explained, "toward paying back what I owe you. It's not much, but I want you to know I'm serious about making things right." The amount was indeed small compared to years of support, but the gesture was meaningful beyond its monetary value. I told her I was proud of her efforts and the example she was setting for her children. Marcus took longer to reach out, his pride apparently more difficult to overcome. When he finally called, his approach was characteristically less direct than Brittany's. "So I got promoted," he announced without preamble. "Junior account manager. It's actually interesting work." "Congratulations," I said sincerely. "That's great news." "Yeah, well," he cleared his throat. "Turns out I'm pretty good at it when I actually try. Who knew?" A pause. "Anyway, I thought you might want to grab a beer sometime, just to catch up." The invitation lacked a formal apology, but represented a significant shift, nonetheless. Marcus had always defined himself in opposition to conventional achievement, perhaps to avoid competing with my career success. His willingness to share a professional accomplishment indicated growth. Our eventual meeting at a local brewery was less emotional than my reunion with Brittany, but equally important. Between discussions of sports and work, Marcus managed a gruff acknowledgement. "I was a jerk," he admitted, studying his beer intently. "Took advantage. Didn't appreciate what you were trying to do." Coming from my proudly unapologetic brother, this qualified as profound remorse. I accepted it as such. My mother proved the most resistant to change, her decades of established patterns harder to modify than my siblings' more recent habits. When she finally requested a meeting 2 months after the confrontation, her approach combined genuine regret with lingering entitlement. "I raised you better than to abandon family," she began when we met at a neutral coffee shop. "I never abandoned anyone," I replied calmly. "I stopped enabling financial dependence." She sighed, age showing in the lines of her face. "Perhaps I've been too reliant on your generosity. It's difficult to admit one's children have surpassed you." It was never about surpassing Mom. It was about balance and mutual respect. Our conversation proceeded cautiously, touching on deeper issues of identity and worth. My mother had defined herself as the family matriarch, the central figure around whom everyone revolved. My withdrawal of financial support had challenged that identity, forcing her to reconsider her role and value. "I do miss you," she admitted eventually. "Sunday dinners aren't the same without you arguing sports with your brother." "I miss those too," I acknowledged. "The dinners, not necessarily the arguments." We agreed to start with occasional shared meals, no financial discussions allowed. Progress with my mother would likely be measured in small increments, rather than dramatic breakthroughs, but even small steps represented movement in the right direction. Throughout this period of cautious reconciliation, Uncle Liam remained my most consistent support. Our relationship deepened through shared experiences and open communication, developing into the kind of family bond I had always sought but rarely found. "You know what I'm proudest of?" he asked during a fishing trip 3 months after the confrontation. "That you didn't cave when things got tough. You held your ground with compassion but firmness." "I learned from the best," I replied, casting my line into the calm lake water. He chuckled. "Just passing along lessons I learned the hard way. Wish I'd had someone to tell me the same when I was your age." 6 months after the midnight confrontation, we held the first full family gathering since the rift. The atmosphere contained lingering tension, but also genuine warmth that had been absent from previous gatherings. My financial status remained a topic carefully avoided, replaced by discussions of work achievements, children's activities, and community events. I noticed subtle but significant changes in family dynamics. My opinions were sought on non-financial matters. Conversations continued when I stepped away, no longer revolving exclusively around my presence. Family members made efforts to contribute to meals and activities, rather than assuming I would cover all expenses. Most importantly, I found myself enjoying their company again. Without the constant undercurrent of financial expectation, I rediscovered the genuine connections that had been obscured by transactional interactions. My niece and nephew ran to greet me with hugs that wanted nothing more than affection. My sister shared work stories with pride in her growing independence. Even my mother seemed more present, less focused on securing resources and more engaged with the actual people around her. The experience taught me valuable lessons about the complex relationship between money and love. Financial support offered from genuine care, but without boundaries, can actually prevent loved ones from developing their own strengths. True generosity sometimes means withholding immediate help to facilitate long-term growth. And most importantly, relationships worth having must be built on mutual respect and reciprocity, not one-sided giving or taking. I continue to help with genuine emergencies, carefully distinguished from poor planning or entitled expectations. When my nephew needed emergency dental surgery, I contributed to the unexpected expense. When my sister's car required repairs to get her to work, I helped research affordable options rather than simply writing a check. These instances of targeted, thoughtful assistance feel entirely different from the previous pattern of dependency. The journey hasn't been perfect. Old patterns occasionally resurface, requiring gentle but firm reinforcement of boundaries. Some extended family members still maintain distance, perhaps uncomfortable with the mirror my experience holds up to their own relationships. But the core connections have not only survived but strengthened through honest confrontation and genuine change. Uncle Liam, my steadfast ally throughout this transformation, perhaps summarized it best during a recent conversation on my back porch. "You know, sometimes losing what you thought you had leads to gaining what you truly need," he observed as we watched the sunset. "You thought you were losing family, but you were actually finding it the real version, not the counterfeit." His words resonated deeply with my experience. By releasing unhealthy patterns and expectations, I had created space for authentic connections to develop. The family I have now might be smaller and less demanding, but it's infinitely more genuine and mutually supportive. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took your generosity for granted? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories about overcoming family challenges. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that setting healthy boundaries isn't selfish. It's sometimes the most loving thing you can do. Thank you for listening to my journey. And remember that true family is measured by mutual respect and love, not by financial transactions or obligations.